last time on night school at Vesperale Academy. Our characters, Igor, the young ghost lad, recently murdered and trying to get to the bottom of it, and Illyria, a human from the Oxbends up to the north, and recent werewolf, are trying to make their way in this school, Vesperale Academy. This old burned-out carcass of a castle houses a secret school for Duskin. These are the young vampires, ghosts, and lycan who populate the quiet corners of the realms of Residus. It is a secret school run in secret by some of the larger secretive factions of Duskin, most notably House Dahlia. Now, in our last episode, we discovered that there are skirmishes going on in the forest to the north. To the north of the castle, there are people that are being pushed south. As Illyria and Chu were sort of discussing Illyria's recent transformations, Chu sent them running off back to the castle to get help because suddenly there were other lycan. There were people wandering through the forest with injuries. They had been attacked, and Chu wasn't necessarily sure that she could hold on to the fortress. The sort of self-assigned fortress, the discovered fortress of the caverns underneath Gambler's Fall. Illyria rushes back to the castle and lets them know, and as they do so, they come upon both Igor and a passel of new arrivals at the castle. They all wear these sort of silvery robes with white lines coursing through them, and many of them have tattoos on their arms and hands and necks, like twisted patterns of vines. They turn out to be clerics from the Dahlia kind of infirmary clinics. As vampires, they have a special connection to blood, and with that ability, they have decided to turn their abilities toward healing. However, while here, Igor and Illyria do their best to try and help out with the healing. Igor finds out a few things about the current status of the runes, what these people might be doing here, a little bit about potentially the items that were found on Professor Ertrick back during that encounter, because of course there was a Luca Brusca spy embedded here in the castle before Illyria, Igor, and Professor Brana fought him off. They've promised Professor Brana to keep this secret in exchange for being able to carry out most of the loot. Professor Brana has taken all proof of this Luca Brusca spy because Professor Brana is a spy herself. She has been embedded here by House Dahlia to sort of keep an eye on things here in the castle. Now, we find ourselves down here in this infirmary with all of these healers around, but a couple of things happen. The lycan, some of the ones that were injured, one of them wakes up and says that the people who attacked them were actually vampires. So we've got vampires up to the north, we have got these lycan refugees moving down south, we have got Luca Brusca hunters who are self-proclaimed Duskin hunters. We don't know where exactly they are in hiding. And with all this going on, Chu, the leader of the sort of in-school youngster faction of of the Pack of Wild Hunger, Chu makes Illyria promise that when the time comes, they will help. They will help. They'll get involved with whatever happens next. And finally, at the very end, we discover that the envoy from House Dahlia, Envoy Rainia, and her bodyguard Dunley, the two of them are leaving the castle. Headmistress Francesca is a little surprised by this, anticipating that they would be around longer, but it seems that they are going off to get in contact with a couple of other vampire houses. House Calthea and House Krakata. What exactly this will mean, we don't know, but Headmistress Franciliska says it will mean blood. But of course, as Envoy Renya points out, the blood has already found its way into the castle doors. In the towers above Castle Vesperale, Madame Franciliska stands stock still. Her eyes glow moon bright, looking down over the castle grounds. From here, we descend down one of the many towers and spires, down past the crumbling masonry, through cracked, broken floors, past students who are just beginning to wake up for their day, into the bunk rooms, with the fire burning bright. As the sun has begun to set, the students here begin to wake up. Igor, you still have clutched in your hand the last note that you found. Yet another Dear Diary note. How it came to be underneath your bed, you do not know. You simply know that the writer of this note is terrified and sure that the end is near. Illyria wakes up next to you. In their bed, just a few feet away, you hear them stretch. Well, we're still here. Haven't been attacked yet. I know we've been ordered to stay inside the castle, but I'm just absolutely fascinated to know what's going on out there. It doesn't seem like Chu would have come back if they had been attacked. Chu is nowhere to be found. We pass the occasional lycan, and Illyria goes up to them intermittently and says, "Have you seen Chu anywhere? I'm looking for Chu." "Well, when was the last time that you saw her?" "Oh, did you see which way she might have gone?" "Still in the castle." "How do you know?" "You don't. Okay, great." As we proceed, we move out of the eastern edge of the castle where the bunk rooms lie, and head out into the larger courtyard out in sort of the center of the castle, between the east and west wings, between the postern and the keep itself, and looking around at the castle, Illyria looks up the steps toward the west wing of the castle, past that to the advanced studies wing, looks up at the postern, and then turns and looks up at the belfry itself. "Do you think we might get a better view from up there?" You don't think Headmistress Franciliska is up there, do you?"
"It's Franciliska, and I don't know."
"Well, forgive me." Illyria grins at Igor, and the two of us continue to wander around asking students, but eventually Illyria decides it's time to head upward. This might be the best time to get a vantage. As the two of us climb up this spiral staircase, Illyria says, "You know, it sure would be handy to have some of those vampire powers right about now. Either that, or if I were some sort of flying lycan, but wolves don't do much flying. That shattering in the shadow trick, that would be nice right about now. I can see why people think that they're turning into bats, but that's not quite it, is it? I don't know. The more I spend time around other Duskin, the more I wonder if there's really one among us that's easiest. It certainly doesn't feel like it's either of us. You can barely hold on to objects for more than about 10 seconds, and I wake up in places I don't know where I am or how I got there, with blood all over my face." Igor says,
I think a ghost should be able to fly, but I certainly have not mastered it.
Well, we haven't given it much of a try, have we? What will he say? Do you want to leap off of the tower?
Illyria smiles, but then gets kind of serious and says,
I don't know if that would be a wise choice. I guess that you could try?
Igor says,
No, thank you.
Illyria laughs, and as we continue to climb up the tower here, we pass the mysterious, unmarked doorway that Igor knows leads up to Madame Francesca's tower room up in the belfry, with the bells and all of the mazes of strange objects and old artifacts. That messy, cobwebbed attic of a headmaster's office. Illyria passes this door, and when you pause, Igor, Illyria says,
I don't know if I want to fully go all the way up to the top. I'm hoping there's a balcony or something around here.
And sure enough, the two of us find an alternative door. It hangs loose by its hinges and appears to be nailed to the door frame to keep it from flapping open in the wind. And as Illyria pulls this door open, indeed, the nail comes loose, the door swings open, and the wind rushes through. Out here, there is a small walkway over to what appears to be what was once a very small tower, but now could maybe better be said to just be a hollow, sort of a marrowless bone of this big carcass that is the castle. Heading across this little walkway, with the wind whipping around us, down below we can see the large courtyard in the middle of the castle.
Well, it's certainly a better view from up here. Can't hear much, certainly won't be able to do any shouting. Nothing that anyone will hear anyway.
As the two of us head out here, there's a bit of movement inside this old small tower. It's not a tower of its own by its own right, but it does have, it's sort of an outcropping on the rooftop of whatever is down below it, some of the classrooms and corridors beneath the keep, beneath the belfry. And Illyria freezes for a moment. They try to sniff the wind, but putting out a hand to stop Igor, which, Igor, you sort of walk into a little bit, and Illyria jerks their hand back because it's cold and a little disturbing to have their hand in your chest. But Illyria whispers, "Wait, there's someone here." Illyria, trying to keep their balance, shakes slightly as the wind whips across this little bridge here. we're pretty exposed right now because we haven't gotten all the way to this other tower that could shield us from the wind.
It's hard to smell because of the wind, but it smells like birds. There's an avian stench to it. But I don't smell any blood. It looks big.
Illyria takes some cautious steps forward, and in just a moment, suddenly the shape appears in one of these crumbling arches of this tiny tower. Doing so, we see that it is a winged figure, seemingly sort of mid-transition. As it comes down from this winged form, the feathers begin to molt off onto the ground. Alternatively, they just sort of shrivel and disappear, leaving simply a small boy. This boy, with the feathers now shed, with the beak now totally receded, steps out and, with a look of shock, suddenly sees a ghost and another lycan standing out here on the bridge. Says,
Whoa, 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 whoa. Who are you? I'm Illyria. This is Igor. Who are you? Are we disturbing something? No. I was just practicing. You were practicing what? I was practicing my wings. You have to practice your wings.
Illyria looks down around the sides of this tower at the multi-story drop down below and says,
This seems like a particularly dangerous place to practice that. Couldn't you climb a tree or something? Yeah. I could. But I could also fly into a tree.
Illyria's eyes narrow. Igor has been sort of observing some of the students around here, and you are trying to figure out if you recognize this individual. You get a good look, and you see if you can recognize him. Against a 6 and a 2, you rolled a 1. This is definitely going to be a wits roll, which for you is a 2. So, I mean, it'll get you to a partial success. Looking at this boy, you definitely recognize him from the school here. You know he's a student here. You think he might even be in your dorm, but there's just some piece missing. You're not sure who this would be. As he sort of runs at you and then stumbles past Illyria, kind of through Igor. He reaches the door and sort of catches himself on it before rushing through and disappearing. You know you recognize him, but there's something different about him that you... you want to know what he is? That part I would say is fairly clear with the feathers that he was sloughing off. You definitely recognize that, you know, like I said, this is somebody from your dorm. There's something that's very different about him right now for some reason that you can't really put your finger on. And you know that based on the feathers he was molting, based on what Illyria is smelling, a were-raven seems to be your best bet. You think he was a were-raven. Illyria continues to smell the wind and says,
All right, well, whatever it was, I don't think he could have been up to too much trouble, right? Ugh.
Illyria walks over to this tiny tower and pokes their head inside, looking around, and finds what appears to be kind of a crumbled in floor. It doesn't look like anything until Illyria remembers they're dealing with a person with wings. And looking up, there is a little ledge up above. And this little ledge, we can see a tiny little oil lamp hanging there, swinging gently in the diminished breeze inside this tower. And down below, we can see that there are, like, discarded bits of food, some wrappers. We seem to have found his little hideout here, and perhaps caught him either coming or going from this little location. Looking up, Illyria can see quite a little collection of scrolls up there as well. Illyria says,
Well, whoever he is, he's a pretty avid reader. I certainly don't recognize scrolls straight out of the library, but some of these look different. Alright, well, I wasn't trying to disturb him, I guess.
Igor says,
Is it stealing if we just read them?
Is it stealing if we just read them?
Illyria grimaces for a second, and you can actually see their teeth are just a little bit more canine than usual. Just slightly.
I mean, probably not, right? I don't think so. I don't know. How did he get up here and find this anyway? Good grief.
Igor begins to snoop around, and Illyria, looking up at this little hideout up there, again, it's just on top of a little ledge. It looks like it would be, frankly, at Illyria's size, probably a little tough to, like, fully sprawl out, but looking around, not much in the way of handholds or climbing opportunities. And Illyria says,
I don't know how we're going to get up there unless one of us can fly.
And they look at you with a poorly hidden grin, expectantly. Igor is going to try and float up there. Now, Igor, you have not yet manifested today, so you're going to need to do that first, I think. Let's go ahead and see how this goes for you. You're going to go ahead and manifest. You might take some -1 momentum here. If it goes poorly against a 4 and a 7, you rolled a 2. But this is plus your spirit, which brings you up to a 7. A 7, do you get I don't think you've got a +1 to this. I don't think you do, so that still is just going to be a partial success. That is all right. You're just going to take -1 momentum, which is going to bring you down to -1 momentum. Now, this does mean that when you roll a 1 on your action dice, that means it is canceled out altogether. Just something to be aware of. However, you do get a couple of haunt to spend here, which means you're going to get to add that when you try to do this next thing. You're going to try and slowly float up to the hideout, but Marienver is wondering, can you pick up any of the feathers? And yeah, I think some of these feathers are indeed still left on the ground. Some of them sort of like shriveled off and sort of just turned into dust and flew away. Many of them are sort of like fluttering around, and you think if this were a one-time thing, you probably wouldn't be able to pick up any, but being as this place seems to be a regular hangout of this individual, you definitely see, little feathers stuck in some of the masonry here. Yeah, you can absolutely pick up a feather or two. Igor picks 1 or 2 of these feathers up, and Illyria steps up next to him and says, all right, well, they're going to give it a shot. It's pretty windy. I suppose I could try to catch you if you fell, but I'm not sure I'd be able to actually get a hold on you. And Illyria sort of like makes a grab for Igor, and although doing a much better job than most would be able to, Illyria does essentially pass through your arm.
Too bad it couldn't be like that when I bit you. I'm still sorry about that. But I'm getting better. I'm getting better.
As Igor looks up and does his best to float, let's see how he does here. Igor, you look up and will yourself to float upward. You have been getting much more practice with your sort of ghastly form than you ever had before. Distracted as you were with the different things going on around the castle. You've had a chance to attend some classes. You've had a chance to observe other ghosts, like Eliza and Terua and other students. But now you close your eyes and will yourself to do something you have not seen much before. You might have caught the occasional glimpse of Eliza darting between the pipes of her pipe organ down in the sort of meditation room as you have known it, but you also know it to be one of the alchemy classrooms. Looking around, looking down over the edge, you begin to float up very gently. You will yourself to be lighter than air, to be less solid than wind, and it is with that will that you suddenly find yourself not shattered at the edges, but certainly in a bit of trouble. Your arms and legs suddenly feel wobbly as the wind rushing through this tower picks up and starts to carry you out toward one of the many open, you could maybe call it a window if it weren't for the fact that it were so ragged around the edges and might as well simply be a crumbled bit of wall. Igor, steady course. Igor, too close to the edge, Igor! And Igor, you find yourself blown toward the edge and suddenly slipping off. You plummet immediately. Let's go ahead and ask you, Igor, how do you want to try and rectify this? This was a full miss. Bad news for you, my friend. And so I would like you to go ahead and let me know how it is you want to try and proceed here. What is it that you try to do to rescue yourself? Because you have just now slipped off the edge and are falling down out of this tower. If the wind blows you just right, you might land on a rooftop, maybe a story below. That would be not great, but okay. If the wind blows just wrong, you could plummet stories and stories down into the courtyard below. That's the thing with flying, is I'm definitely not going to say it's impossible, but the consequences for failing are probably going to be pretty bad. And in this case, it simply didn't go your way. Sandra says, can we not surf on the wind, like go with the flow? I'm okay with this. I'm okay with giving it a shot, just letting it sort of carry you, because rarely does wind go whoosh, whoosh, right? Wind's not going to try and spike you, so you might get tumbled around quite a bit, but generally wind flows sort of around stuff fairly gently. We shall see. Let's find out. Orly Rose says, I mean, we are dead, so what would actually happen? That is a good question. You know that certain things can absolutely hurt you. You have had people with mundane weapons try to get at you, and that has not been terrible. However, you also had Illyria in werewolf form bite you, and that shredded your hand up pretty good. I think the main takeaway here is you are not precisely sure what can hurt you, and in fact, you're sort of learning in your classes, it's a little different for each ghost. Not totally different, but you think that falling, it definitely has a chance to hurt you. I kind of like this idea that Igor's going to try and just sort of no bones it and let the wind carry him away. Igor, you relax, you try to feel the wind around you, and being this high up, the wind is brisk. This, I think, is going to be an edge roll, and against a 7 and a 2, you roll a 5. 5, with your edge, 6, 7, that matches. That would get you a weak hit, except you've also got this manifest to spend. And so your ghastly form, you go ahead and relax yourself into your ghostly form. And although you have no control over where you're going, you are whisked away. Illyria, you can hear them screaming from up in this tower up above, but Illyria's screams die away as, looking down, Illyria sees that you are not dashed upon the rooftops or even the courtyard down below, but rather you find yourself carried away. You very nearly hit a rooftop, but flinching ever so slightly, you manage to relax again and pass over this rooftop pretty safely. Down below, there are a few students who now see what's going on, and this seems to be notable enough that they point up at where you are flying through the air over the courtyard and plummeting down below. A couple of screams sound out, one of them from you hear a girl scream somewhere nearby, and unfortunately can't tell quite who it is. However, as the wind carries you, very nearly dashed against walkways, and you even waft in through a window in a big empty corridor and then out the other side again, before landing not on your feet certainly, but unharmed, just above the courtyard on one of the rooftops above the west wing of the castle. You see the small figure up above of Illyria hanging over the side of this tower with their head looking frantically down below for where you may have landed. Illyria, you can't hear what they're yelling, but upon seeing that you are indeed safe, you see the figure of Illyria stand and shout, standing sort of cheering for this crazy thing that you just did, and then sort of shaking their head back and forth like this was a terrible plan. This could have gone so much worse. You see nearby is Tower Bailey. Tower Bailey separates the main body of the castle from the Advanced Studies Wing and the Barbican, etc. And this is the tower that you have to pass through. It's the one with the murder hole in it. And it is almost always guarded by upperclassmen because the lower class is not allowed out past Tower Bailey. You being up on a rooftop, sort of sidle up alongside it, you're about halfway up the tower, Igor, and you can't hear what Illyria is shouting from up above there, but they definitely look relieved looking down at you. Illyria, meanwhile, up in the tower, breathing heavily, just says,
"Oh, gods, keep finding ourselves in the strangest trouble."
Looking down, Illyria tries to succeed in the mission that we originally came up here for, which is simply to get eyes on Chu, or at least part of the gang, burning momentum for this partial success. Illyria looks down around the castle, and as Igor wafts down to this tower top, through the high windows of the Barbican itself, Illyria sees a small gang of figures clad in some black leather jackets and coats and cloaks heading out toward the castle grounds. Classes have been canceled for the day, and so we know it's not going to be another class heading out there. Illyria waves down at Igor and points frantically toward the Barbican. Igor, you're not sure quite what they're on about right now, but Illyria definitely has eyes on something. Well, you know what you came up here for initially. Sandra's wondering, can we walk into the building, like through the closed wall, maybe? What do you guys think? You can certainly give it a try. Let's give you a little shadow roll here. There we go. That is your last haunt available, so you're gonna have to remanifest next time you want to do this, but you do indeed make your way toward this wall, and although the windows of this tower seem to be pretty well kept up, as a matter of fact, looking around, you see that there are few parts of the castle as well maintained as Tower Bailey. And you see that the windows, some of them are paned with shadow glass, which prevents the sun from hurting those Duskin who might be inside that are susceptible to the sunlight. You look in through this and manage to pass your hand through some of this shadow glass. It doesn't go easily, but it's easier than passing directly through stone. Emerging into Tower Bailey, you find yourself in the room above the passage between the main castle and the Advanced Studies wing. Now there is the east wing of the castle. That's where your bunk rooms are. There's the west wing of the castle, which is, you know, over on this end here. But then past the west wing, there's another wing. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's how it is. The castle courtyard, the main courtyard, is surrounded by the postern to the north, the keep to the south, the east wing to the east, and the west wing to the west. But then past the west wing, that's where the Advanced Studies wing is. And in between that west wing and the Advanced Studies wing, that is where Tower Bailey sits. Right now, you find yourself standing stock still, because inside there is a pair of upperclassmen. They seem to be a boy and a girl, both of them elves, it looks like, and perhaps caught in the middle of a bit of romance. You see them holding hands and looking at each other very, very lovingly, and very distracted from whatever they might be doing in terms of guarding this between the Western wing and the Advanced Studies wing. These two elves in front of you, you see one has got some vampire teeth going on, and one of them has hands. She's got hands that definitely have some sort of talon aspect to them, and you can see her sort of like kind of shyly, not quite sure about this holding hands thing with these talons, but this elf lad, older than you certainly, is smiling with his vampire teeth, and as the two of them lean in, closing their eyes, relishing this moment of quiet togetherness, Igor rolls his eyes and leaves. Let's see if you're able to get through here totally unnoticed. Oh, good lord. That's a partial success. Inside the room that you just left, you hear, Wait, what was that? Becca, did you hear that? Hold on. And from behind you, you start to hear the sounds of two people shuffling around, getting up from the crates that they were sitting on and coming to investigate. You gotta jump, Igor. Time to get out of here pretty darn quick. It would take you a moment to remanifest, so it's time to just go ahead and move. Let's get you sneaked out of here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's a partial success. Igor, you can still hear them behind you. You hear kind of stumbling around. I don't know, I thought I heard something, Becca.
Danny, can we just stop for a second? Are you sure that this isn't about the talons?
No, babe, it's not about the talons. I definitely heard something.
And they continue to pursue you. You have not lost their trail yet, but as you head on through here, you find yourself at the intersection of some hallways that you've never been in before. You look around, you can see over to the right, there is another sort of network, a maze of corridors once more, and like the rest of the castle, this whole thing was constructed in the absolute wildest way possible. There is a definite sort of Mad King Ludwig vibe to this castle, where none of the floors are perfectly level. As a matter of fact, some of them operate more like ramps, and if you go long enough on them, you might find yourself never leaving one floor, but suddenly finding yourself on a different floor. There are holes in the ground, in the ceiling, and in the walls. It is tough to get your bearings around here. Let's see if you can manage it. Let's see if we can figure out where you are going. You know roughly the direction you need to head. With a strong hit, you know where you're headed. You can see off to the right, that is the Advanced Studies Wing proper, with its alchemy and its advanced magic, advanced expeditioneering, all sorts of... There's even a small additional library there of some more challenging texts. That's not the direction you want to go. You're headed toward the Barbican, and so you head in a direction roughly straight out the door that you just left. Now behind you, you can still hear these two pursuing. Danny and Becca seem to be on their way behind you, and down below, as you emerge out onto kind of a catwalk that seems to be kind of suspended by chains from the ceiling, it is a rickety kind of rope bridge, kind of a wooden rope bridge sort of construction. And yet it's set up very close to the ceiling, to the point where you actually have to kind of duck your head to walk along it. You suddenly find yourself at this trapdoor and heading out onto this catwalk. And down below, you can see the Barbican itself. Now, the Barbican is this pretty large room, all told. It is... similar to the size of the Great Hall, slightly smaller. It's about the size of a single court gymnasium. And it's got a kind of a line of benches around the outside of the whole room, and then these stone pillars overgrown with green. And you recognize this as the scene where just yesterday, you and Illyria and Professor Brana fought off that Luca Brusca spy who had been embedded in the castle, Professor Ertrick. There is, of course, no sign of that struggle here anywhere. Igor, you crawl across this rope bridge, and let's make another check here to see if you're able to finally evade your pursuers. Against a 4 and a 9, you rolled a 3. 4, 5, 6. Partial success.
Becca, I'm not crazy. I know. I heard somebody over here. Look, I know we gotta get back, and maybe, like, you should go back, or I should go back, but, like, one of us needs to be in that tower, but one of us gotta find out. Is somebody trying to sneak through? Because Corzone is probably gonna, like, kick your ass if that's true. And I don't want that, babe, you know that.
Igor, you turn a corner onto one of the branching arms of this catwalk up here high above the Barbican. You know you're heading in the right direction, but you are still being pursued, and you look behind you. You've turned around a corner, so you can't see where your pursuers might be, but you can still hear the voices. And you wait for a moment, totally still.
Becca, I think you should go back. Look, if there's nobody here, I'm in, like, a lot of trouble. But if there is, I think I gotta be the one to catch them, so I gotta go for it.
And you see, Igor, behind you, this chain-suspended bridge wobbles slightly as your pursuer continues to give slow chase. We cut back away from this, back to Illyria.
Okay. Igor, I wish you all the speed in the world, but I don't know how I'm going to reach you.
Illyria stands close to the edge, looking down onto the nearest rooftop. Calculations, trying to decide if this is going to be the right move. Mapping their path, Illyria can see all of the jumps and leaps and drops required to go from rooftop to rooftop. Some real Assassin's Creed nonsense. Takes a deep breath.
No, there's no chance I'm going to... I'll get myself killed.
And Illyria sprints toward the door that we use to get out into this balcony. Illyria sprints through the castle. This is going to be a little bit tougher because, of course, Illyria is going to have to pass through Tower Bailey. Not ideal, but fortunately, there is a helper on the other side, and at least some of the forces have been divided here. The more we try to sneak out of the castle, the more threatening this gets. Let's go ahead and see if Illyria is able to get out there quick enough. The going is pretty slow for you, so Illyria does have a chance to catch up. Let's find out if it works. Partial success, and as such, Illyria manages to arrive at Tower Bailey pretty well unencumbered. This is, of course, where things go a little bit south. Illyria arrives at Tower Bailey to find, well, who else would it be? Corzone, with his massive hair stuck up underneath his hat, and with a grimace on his face as he sees one of his least favorite younger class. It's Illyria. Wouldn't you know it? Right now, I don't know what this is going to be about, but I do know that it is not something that I want to be a part of. Illyria, you have only meant one thing to me before, and that is trouble. Do I have any reason to suspect that today may be different? No trouble, Corzone. Of course not. I would never. I was just, I had to catch up to some of the professors because, I just got word from... Illyria's brain is just grinding, trying to figure out what lie to tell Corzone here. I have some news that Chu needs. News from Chu that needs to be delivered out to Madame Francesca herself. I was sent by Professor Brisley. You were sent by Brisley, yeah? Alright, so do you have, you got a note or something?
No, I've just got it in my head.
You've got it in your head. You've got something in your head, that's right. What is the message?
I'm not supposed to go all the way down to the river, but there is a professor apparently posted up on the parade grounds, and I'm supposed to deliver the message out to them. Just out onto the parade grounds.
Alright. Well, that seems totally reasonable. Just out to the parade grounds. I shall accompany you.
Okay. Alright. Okay. Yes, that would be excellent. In fact, I would feel much safer with you around, sir.
Sir? I'm a few years older than you. I'm not sir.
Of course.
Alright, come this way. Danny! Becca! I've got to step out for a moment. When have you come down here?
Yeah, I'll be right down.
Those two are going to be trouble. But not more trouble than you can be, so come with me.
Alright.
And Corzone leads Illyria into the Barbican and out toward the parade grounds. I'm going to make two different checks here right now. Illyria looks up and around as Corzone accompanies them through the Barbican. The Barbican, this big sort of single gymnasium-sized room with all the stone pillars overgrown with green. Illyria knows this scene and at the door stops for a moment before continuing on with Corzone. Passing between these stone pillars, remembering how just a day before, something terrible happened in this room, although Illyria isn't quite certain what. Illyria shakes their head and looks around for Igor. That's a miss. Illyria, looking up and around, not having time to really pause and search for Igor, doesn't know where Igor might have ended up, and as such has to simply continue out toward the parade grounds, hoping to get reconnected at some later time here. Corzone mumbles as he walks.
Lower classmen as messengers. I'm sure that this is going to amount to nothing, but unless things have gotten really, really bad. How bad could they have gotten? These are lycan moving south after all, even if they are colonist.
He looks suspiciously back at Illyria, who just smiles and shrugs, and says,
Just out to the parade ground, right? Not very far at all.
Illyria continues to look around for Igor, but sees nothing. Meanwhile, Igor up above. Igor, you have got this pretty good view. Let's hope that you're able to find something. Igor, looking down below. Weak hit. As this bridge shakes underneath you, this rope bridge, or chain bridge might be more technically correct. Looking down, you can see the bridge shaking underneath you, and it brings your attention down to where you are on your hands and knees, crawling across this catwalk. But down below, you hear voices. You hear Illyria's voice. Illyria and Corzone are now walking through the Barbican, heading toward a big set of doors off to the left side, basically the southern corner of the room, heading toward what you know to be Tower Scullaport, where basically everyone you know gets in and out of the castle. Igor, what is it you're going to try and do here? You can continue to try. There are lots of like twists and turns. There may well be nearby a sort of a passage down. There might be a ladder nearby, something along those lines. Even just like a chain that you can slide down. But, or you could try to simply drop. But you do know that Danny, the vampire upperclassman, is heading your direction. Illyria knows that Igor is around here someplace. Looking up above, there are some high windows up in the sort of up among the rafters, I guess you would say, the exposed rafters of the Barbican, and Illyria is looking up and around at them, hoping to catch a glimpse of Igor. Has not managed to do so yet, but does want to try and wait. Of course, Chu and the gang are probably out skulking along across the parade grounds right now, but Illyria really would like to have Igor present. And so Illyria tries to create a distraction. Before I take a look at it, Illyria says,
Wait, I feel a little strange. Something terrible happened in here. Something bad.
Something bad? What do you mean? Did you see something?
Illyria really does feel, with this miss, does feel that something terrible has indeed happened here. Igor, you know this better than they do, but they stop right in the place where the three of us, you, me, and Professor Brana, fought and killed that Luca Brusca spy. Illyria stands a little confused, staring at the ground around their feet.
Something awful happened right here.
Corzone fully stops and turns and grabs onto Illyria kind of gently by the shoulders and says,
Illyria, what did you see?
I didn't see anything. I can feel it. Death visited here.
Death? Who's death? Illyria, who died here? What happened?
Corzone starts to sort of like look up and around, trying to get a read on what might be happening here in the room. Corzone, looking around, pushes Illyria off to one side, sort of up against a pillar here, just to sort of stand them out of the way, and starts to pace around the room, looking up and around, looking down at the floor.
Illyria, you look haunted. Tell me, what did you see here?
As he is examining the room, things are getting a bit worse. Igor, you have to duck behind every time he looks up into the exposed rafters and catwalks up above those rafters here in this place. But as you are sort of ducked around this big pillar, you know Danny is on his way. Let's see if Corzone is going to notice anything going on up above. This is going to be a shadow roll for you. So +3. Against a 3 and a 10, you rolled a 5, which is a partial success. Danny! Danny, what are you doing up there?
Corzone, sorry. Yeah, there's no trouble or anything. I just, I lost, like a gauntlet out here.
You lost a gauntlet?
Yeah, yeah. And so I was like gonna go try to look for it, and I thought, maybe it like got up here when
you were doing what?
When I was just doing, some of my stuff.
You were doing what?
Just like doing some more.
I can't hear you. Listen, I've got to go deliver a message out onto the parade grounds, but I'm going to be back in just a moment. I want you to go back to your post. Alright? You're wasting time here.
Yeah. Totally, Corzone, for sure. I just do need that gauntlet, though. So I'm gotta...
Danny. You tell me what is going on right now. Everyone is being weird. I don't trust it.
Alright, Corzone, look... I heard something. I was checking out the north window, and then sort of the south window, like I just heard like a rattle or a clank or something. And then like the door opened and shut. I'm sure it's not like a big deal.
The door opened and shut.
Yeah, and they're, of course, having this conversation just hollered back and forth between the roof of this big gymnasium-sized Barbican and the opposite corner of it. So there's just like shouting back and forth. Yeah, so I just need to see what that was all about. See if it, because it was probably the wind, and if it was the wind, I just want to like find them.
You want to find them. And so I assume that what you mean by this is that you're fairly certain someone did get past you? In spite of the fact that there were 2 of you on guard? Yes?
Yeah, I guess so.
Alright. Well then get on with it. Quit skulking around and find whoever got past you.
Yeah, okay. Alright. I'm going.
And Danny starts to scramble in your direction. You've now got a vampire pretty hot on your tail. Igor says we can always try to float down. So, in the interim, as this was going on, our ghost friend Igor with a vampire, an ineffective vampire hot on your tail, and then an angry upper class lycan down below. You decide, well, there's a little bit more room down below to hide. There are the catwalks up here, but there are also some balconies surrounding. There's a big wide balcony that encompasses the entire room. It goes around sort of about halfway up toward the ceiling. So it's a few stories, just about 2 stories down to that, and then another 2 stories down to the main floor. And you try to aim for that balcony and just sort of float your way down. Now you are a ghost, but you don't have you don't have any haunt left to you right now. And frankly, I'm gonna say that otherwise it's gonna be it's gonna be too cheatsy. Like it would just be way too powerful to be a ghost. I'm gonna say you need to have at least some manifest available to you, some haunt available to you, if you're gonna try stuff that is explicitly ghastly. Unless you just want to try and drop like any kid would drop. Just fall. So here's the question. It is going to be more risky to drop without the haunt, but it's going to be more risky to stay here and try to manifest while you are being actively pursued. So the question is up to you. Sandra says, how high is the fall? It's about a story and a half down to that balcony below. About a story and a half, maybe 2 stories high. If it goes really, really poorly for you, that's going to be you're going to get dinged by 1 from one of your resources, either health or spirit. Probably health, I imagine. We shall see. So it is up to you, my friends. Which one would you like to do? Would you like to try to stay here and manifest as quick as you can while you are, while you know that Danny the vampire is just around the corner, or are you going to try and just drop down below, knowing that you don't have the sort of ghastly focus you need right now, in order to float gently down as a ghast would? And I did just definitely spill water all over myself. I just sort of like hurled it in my own face like I had just offended myself on a date. Let's give it a shot. You are just going to try and jump this sucker. Here we go. Are y'all ready? Igor, you see the chain bridge shake more and more as Danny approaches the little corner where he'll suddenly be able to spot you. Down below, about 2 stories down, you can see this balcony that runs around the circumference of the Barbican. You can see even further down in the main floor of the Barbican, there is Corzone. Illyria is still sort of peering at the floor in a bit of a daze, but Corzone is looking up and around, examining the floor, but also trying to sort out what is going on with Danny up in the rafters. That's a full miss, gang. Igor, you plummet 2 stories down onto this balcony. I'm going to go ahead and say that a 1-story drop is 1 health, and so 2 stories is going to be 2 health. You are down to 3 out of 5 as you slam into the balcony down below you. Now, it is cracked in places. It's made out of some ancient wood, and you find yourself hitting it really hard. Your ghastly form does very little to protect you because it's been a little while since you last manifested, and you have to be focused so much on being here in the present moment, on being physical and corporeal. You sort of over-focused, and you just thud right into this sucker. You certainly are feeling it, and the crunch of you're not sure what in your ghostly form. Frankly, it's more of like a little wheeze kind of sound that escapes you. You just suddenly hear more frantic movement from up above. Yeah, Corzone. Yeah, no, I think it wasn't the wind. I've definitely caught somebody moving around up here. Hey, you! Hey, what's your name? Up above, you can see that Danny is looking down at you. His pale, ghostly face is pretty well smudged up with what appears to be some sort of lipstick, from his from his noodling over in Tower Bailey. Some of Becca's lipstick is definitely smeared across his face as this pale vampire face pokes out around the corner. And that is the question for you, isn't it, my friend? Run? Hide? What do you do next? That is the question that you've got. Meanwhile, Illyria has snapped out of it just a bit, and is going to try and do what they can to rectify the situation, although not entirely sure what there is to do. Frankly, me as Sam, I'm not sure what I can do to help this out. I mean, I feel like I should try to sort of climb up to where you are if I can. Try to get away from Corzone here. Illyria, standing behind Corzone, looking up at the kerfuffle going on up above, thinks this must be Igor. And with Corzone, with his back turned, Illyria is going to try and just shove him over and get out of here. Okay. Illyria lunges toward Corzone from behind, but Corzone turns at just the wrong moment, and seeing that Illyria is rushing him, he lowers his head, throws his arms backward, and meets Illyria with a headbutt. At this point, Illyria is in an absolute daze. Illyria falls straight on their ass, and looking up fully cross-eyed at Corzone, just goes, What? Oh. Corzone's hat slips off. And underneath, we see that it is not just hair underneath there. It's not just a big hairdo that Corzone has under there. Indeed, Corzone has two sizable, curling mountain ram horns. And Illyria just caught the brunt of them. Illyria, I am not going to tell you anymore, alright? I don't know what sort of trouble that you're trying to cause today, but this is going to be the end of it, alright? You hear me? This must be the end of it. I know what's going on up there, based on who you are, based on who you spend your time with. Igor, get yourself down here. You two are going to be delivered to Professor Priestley for whatever is going to happen to you next. Enough. Illyria is just sat on the ground, still like wide-eyed in a daze. Illyria is going to try and recover from this, and I think I'm going to give it one more chance here. Illyria is going to try and rush forward once again. From down below, you hear "Ah!" as Illyria jumps up and sort of stumbles toward Corzone. Down below, you hear Illyria scream and rush into the fray. As you look up, there is Danny scrambling along here, not wanting to just drop down below, possibly not yet a talented enough vampire to shatter into shadows and just join you down here. Looking for a way down. You've got just a moment. Igor tries to focus and manifest, hoping that some of this ghost energy will be a little bit more helpful than just dropping off of ledges. It wasn't a terrible idea, but it did turn out terribly. Let's see how you do. Oh my god, against a 4 and an 8. So with your spirit as high as it is, you are going to take plus, you can take -1 momentum. You do manage a weak hit, which unfortunately gives you, in this case, just the 1 haunt. You've got 1 haunt to spend right now before you have to remanifest. Sanders says he knows who we are, so we're still getting in trouble, right? I mean, he's got a guess. He hasn't seen you. He just knows, like, okay, Illyria and some ghost are creeping around in here. So it'll depend on who he goes to. Is it going to be a beak that puts strong emphasis on burden of proof, or is it going to be somebody who just goes, well, yeah, if it was Illyria and a ghost, we know who the ghost is. Depends on who they go to. Yeah, Illyria's probably in some trouble. All right, Illyria is in some trouble. You have managed to get 1 haunt. What is it you would like to do with it? We're going to come back to you in just a moment. Down below, Illyria is rushing Corzone once more. Illyria is sizable, but not as big as Corzone. But Illyria does have some significant ferocity on their side, and as such, is going to try and rush Corzone. We're going to enter the fray. This is bad idea. But it's happening nonetheless. Illyria says,
You don't understand. We have to get outside. We have to join them.
You've got to join who? Illyria runs forward, and Corzone once again lowers his head and prepares to meet me head on. But Illyria, knowing what to expect now, reaches up and just grabs the horns. And so now Corzone is leaned forward with his sizable shoulders back, while Illyria is sort of from underneath, just sort of grabbed onto the horns and is pushing upward. The two of us are locked in a stalemate, but Illyria is ready to act next. Igor wants to transform into mist and try to move around Illyria. This is a trick that you have practiced a couple of times. Hopefully it goes okay for you. I think you're going to try and secure an advantage for your friend here. And it's absolutely going to be plus shadow. And you're going to be able to use this haunt on it if it comes to that. Let's see how it goes. Igor, you rush around to a... I think you're gonna have to get there first, frankly. So I'll do a new roll here because I haven't seen this one yet, but we'll do a new roll. And you're gonna have to make your way down there pretty quickly because you're close, but you're not that close. You still have like a whole couple of stories to travel here. You could use your haunt to try and float down there if you wish, but until that time, unless you want to try that, then you won't have any haunt to use when you actually get down there. So we're gonna call this probably an edge. Yeah. It's like 2 or 3 stories high, Sander. So you rush down there. I would say it's probably not a great move to try and just hove yourself off the edge again, because you're probably going to need that haunt later. So, with an edge roll against a 2 and a 5, you've rolled a 1. Now, that brings you, with your edge, that brings you up to a 3. And then, can you do the whole thing? Because, I mean, you're sort of infiltrating here. Part of this move is trying to get down there without Danny being able to follow you super quickly. You take +1, yes. That's going to get you to a 4, but you can't get up to a 6. So, unfortunately, that is not going to cut it. But that's okay. You still get +1 momentum for sneaking because you got a hit there. Yeah, and you need your ghost stuff. So, you definitely managed to find your way down. You are not... basically, you could just like try to leap it, and that would have gotten you there quicker, but it would have been much more dangerous. And yeah, so... It was a good call. It does mean that you do not arrive in time to help out Illyria yet. Next turn, you'll be able to. Igor rushes along this wide balcony around the outside of the Barbican and spots a ladder. Running to the ladder, you grab on both sides and just slide your way down. Meanwhile, you hear from another ladder just beside you, there is Danny coming down from the rafters up above. Illyria, down below on the same site where the Luca Brusca spy / Professor Ertrick was dispatched just a day ago. Illyria has got the ram by the horns. And Illyria is going to strike.
I don't want to hurt you, I just have to get outside.
You don't have to go outside. You got to stay here in the castle where you can be safe and protected. Don't you listen, Illyria?
Illyria has got the ram by the horns, has got Corzone by his ram's horns, and manages to push and push and push, and then suddenly releases and drags the horns at the same time, causing Corzone to use his momentum to lurch forward, and Illyria directs him right into one of these stone pillars. Crunch as Corzone's head meets the pillar, and he steps back in a daze, and now it is his own eyes that are a little cross-eyed, as the two of us, now both slightly cross-eyed, face off here, and Illyria does manage to retain initiative. Igor, meanwhile, is going to try and rush up to Illyria and become kind of a mist around Illyria to try and give us some advantage here. Securing an advantage, this is going to be with some trickery. Okay, here we go. Ooh, it's a good thing you held on to that haunt, Igor, because I think it might do the trick here. Turns into a puff of smoke, a cloud of mist that envelops around Illyria, and Illyria shivers a little bit. Oh, Igor. Oh, it's weird every time. But Illyria stands over Corzone, and he's going to try and wrap these vines around Corzone's horns so that Corzone just stays stuck here. Corzone is a little bit dazed, kind of leaning against the pillar. He's got his head up against it a little bit, just sort of like trying to keep his balance. And Illyria has got these vines and is just trying to wrap them around Corzone's horns, get him tangled up so we can leave, so we can get out of here. Illyria drags a sheet of these vines that sort of strip off the stone pillar with enough force, drags them down onto Corzone. Danny from up above is yelling, "Whoa, whoa, hey, leave him alone! Hey, whoa! Who are you kids?" Corzone is trying to spit out vines and leaves and, you know, the dirt that sort of clings to vines on the wall, and does indeed get pretty well tangled up inside this mess, giving us 6 out of 10 progress right now, and I maintain initiative. Illyria is eyeing the door right now, looking out toward the door that will lead out into the hall. It is unfortunately the Welcome Hall, which the two of us know as a viciously dangerous place filled with traps, but it is the way out of here. It's the only way out of here that we know. You want to stay missed for the time being? Absolutely. Illyria continues to try and wrap these vines around, and now I think is going to try and just pull the vines down altogether so that not only is Corzone tangled, but also won't be able to see where they go next. Because, I mean, Danny's, you know, climbing down one ladder and, you know, trying to hop over onto a different one to continue the way down. Illyria manages to rip this sheet of vines down and covers up Corzone in like this blanket of vines. He is tangled up. He is in, frankly, some rough shape here. Just trying to be able to see through, you know, his eyes are squinted shut, trying to escape the onslaught of branches and leaves and dust and dirt off of these vines. Danny's still mucking around on the ladder. That is a partial success. Illyria turns the tide here, and I must make a hit on this move or I'm going to pay the price here. Illyria wraps the final vines around Corzone, and his eyes are all blurry, and frankly his face is totally covered by this sheet of vines pulled down. His horns are caught up in the vines, and Illyria says, "Sorry, Corzone, I'm sorry. I have to help, I have to go." And surrounded by the mist that is Igor, sprints out of the room. Now, Corzone is totally taken care of here. If, with your help, we can get sprinted out of here with a strong hit, we're gonna leave Danny in the dust. Illyria's edge is only a +1. So Igor, you wanna go pull the ladder? Absolutely, go, let's do it. That's a weak hit, but a hit nonetheless. Igor, you coalesce back into your corporeal form. This ghost, Igor, rushes over to the ladder that Danny is now about halfway down, and certainly low enough that he's not going to be terribly injured if he makes it all the way to the floor a little too quickly. You try to yank it out from underneath him, and you do indeed manage to get it just unbalanced enough. Technically, this ladder is mounted to the wall, but like everything else in the castle, it is dilapidated beyond all sense of safety, and you heave with all of your might, which is not quite the same as Illyria, frankly, and whoa, go! And landing in the, frankly, hay bale of vines that is Corzon, Danny falls backward and gets tangled up just enough to give Illyria time to get on out of here. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I gotta do this really well. This is my edge, which is only a +1. Illyria sprints out of the Barbican into the Hall of Traps, known as the Welcome Hall. Kind of a tongue-in-cheek name for a place so horrifying. Rushing out, Illyria stops dead with Igor right beside them, and the two of us stand here in this long hallway at the very head of it, looking down. We're at a side entrance, which means we don't have to pass through quite as much of the Welcome Hall as we would if we were just coming in straight from the castle and avoiding the Barbican altogether. But looking down here, we can see that we still have this dangerous area between us and Tower Scullaport that will let us out into the castle grounds. Behind us, we hear Danny and Corzon. Get off of me! Get off! Just go and find them! You're going to have to catch them or we are both going to be in trouble, and I can promise you if there is trouble for me, there's going to be even more trouble for you leaving your post, letting someone out like this! Yeah, okay. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm just gonna go chase it. You're good? You're good? I am fine. Get out of here! All right. I'm going. Illyria slams the door shut so that the two of us are now stuck, essentially, here in the Welcome Hall. Shing, shing. Somewhere in the dark silence, we can hear blades. We hear dripping that we know can't just be water. Not here in the Welcome Hall. This horrific hall of traps. Hey, open the door. Look, we just gotta, go back into the castle. You're not gonna, you won't be in trouble. Yes, they will be in trouble. Of course they will. Okay, you're gonna be in, some trouble, but, it's fine. We can just, get you back. It is not fine. Igor, I don't know how much longer I can hold this door. I got to get out of here. No, don't get out of here. Just stay in here, Igor, we've got to get out. However, as Illyria turns, holding on for dear life onto the metal ring in the door to keep it closed because it doesn't lock from this side, it locks from the other side. Illyria peers back over their shoulder and hanging on, leaning back to try and throw all their weight behind this, the two of us look down this long hallway, and from little alcoves in the corner, balanced on one foot or hanging from lamp chains from the wall, one of them clutched in the arms of a suit of armor, not moving, all dressed in black leather. There is Chu's gang, and from the far end of the hallway, having already made it to the other side, looking down at the two of us, her piercings glinting, and with a grin on her face, showing off her canine incisors. Chu says, "Oh, good grief. Well, I was hoping for a quieter exit here, but I guess we can't always get what we wish for, can we? All right, you lumps. Come on down. Still, make sure they get past that fire trap, okay? We've got some revenge to take." Hogwarts Hippie, I am really glad you really enjoyed this, because by golly, I enjoy it too. Everyone, thank you so very much for being here. In today's episode, Illyria and Igor discover that Chu is on her way out of the castle, and they must find out where she is going and what she's up to. Unfortunately, pursued by some upperclassmen, we do find our way into the Barbican, which is the large open room near Tower Scullaport, the one way that the two of us know how to get inside and outside the castle safely and reliably, I should say. And with this, we find ourselves pursued. Illyria, unfortunately, does have to play their hand and reveal themselves as just simply trying to get out of the castle. That's probably going to have some consequences for us later on, especially with Corzone, who already doesn't like us, but this is just going to exacerbate that issue. We find ourselves now joining Chu in the Hall of Traps known as the Welcome Hall. We're on our way out of the castle. I was definitely spotted. Illyria was definitely spotted. Igor was not. But us, you mean for you, we were not spotted? I'm not tracking the syntax entirely, Sander, but yeah, essentially one of us was spotted. The other one was not. But I hope you're excited, because I certainly am. A grand old time. I always love doing this with y'all. I think next time I'm just going to commit to this. Next time is going to be maybe kind of a chattier episode, as opposed to kind of big action. There's a lot of discussion that there is to be done with Chu, and I think as we accompany her gang and whatever they get up to, I think y'all can anticipate we're going to have kind of a lower action episode next week. Now, I'm not going to say there will be no action. As a matter of fact, I definitely have something planned, but just anticipate it's not going to be kind of a knockdown, drag-out battle. You know what I mean? However, the session after that, we shall certainly see. Who knows what shall be discovered at the end of this little adventure. Folks, thank you so much for joining me here. We do this every Wednesday, of course. If you would like to know more about this channel, go ahead and use the links command. That will bring you to the linktree/sidecar stories. That is the best spot to find out about everything sidecar stories, most especially the Discord. If you would like to know more about this campaign specifically, go ahead and use the play command. You can find out about the world that we're running in. You can find out a little bit about this campaign using the Lore Keeper's Tome. You can find the character sheets and some of the artwork and the maps over there as well. Our electricity just went out for like a half second. That means I better go quick, because otherwise this stream is definitely going to crash on me. As I mentioned before, folks, if I've got right now, I'm in money saving mode. I'm working an extra job until basically the end of August. I'm working through August with the likelihood that we're going to need that money for rent and necessities through August. If we don't, however, if that does not come to pass, I am definitely going to be using some of that money to get a new router. That is definitely on my list. There we go. There we go, folks. I thank you all very much for joining me here. Sander has asked an interesting question. Tell us about the combat. Did you rob our characters of any hit points, etc.? Not that, no. Basically, we should have been dealing more damage than we were. There are a couple of different there are like different layers of mechanics that define how much damage one deals. Hogwarts Hippie, have a great one. I will see you tomorrow for however we end up organizing that the Scream Go Wonky sort of. I guess maybe we'll end up reading just one extra chapter tomorrow, or I'll split the two of them into 2 streams and do a 2 stream, because we've got 4 chapters left in part 1, and I don't want to stop. I don't want to have a part end between. I don't know. I don't like it. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about combat. We have got, and then we're going to go on and talk about our quests and if any of them have been advanced by today's session. Our combat, I've been doing it wrong. We have not been dealing enough damage, which is why some of these even 2 troublesome foes I thought were gonna really kick our butts. So what we've got here is basically you set the rank of your foe, and a troublesome foe. Every time we do harm, we do 3 progress. Every time we inflict harm. Remember that progress tracks are out of 10. It's always out of 10. And so basically, I made these both troublesome foes, which means that every time I do harm, or one of us does harm, I should be inflicting 3 progress, right? Okay, there we go. However, on a strong hit, I deal +1 harm, which I believe means... Oh shoot! I might not even have it correct now. Hold on a second. When you enter into combat, so 3 progress per harm. Okay, so it's not addition; it's multiplication. This is a multiplication issue. Every time I inflict harm, that should be 3 progress. For a troublesome foe, it should be 3 progress. What that means is, when I inflict harm, basically when you are unarmed or wield an improvised weapon or a simple weapon, like you're using a shield or a stick or a club or a rock or something, you just deal 1 harm. Which means that 1 harm equals 3 progress, right? I was just doing the progress. And essentially saying, okay, just 1 harm every time, just 1 harm every time. However, on a strong hit, I'm supposed to deal an additional harm. What I realized in the middle of our session today was that, okay, that should be, so that means I should be doing an additional progress every time, but that's not true. It should be an additional harm every time. And for a troublesome foe, 1 harm equals 3 progress, which means if I hit... Let's say against a troublesome foe, so the easiest type of foe, that's 3 progress per harm. If I score a single strong hit with a deadly weapon like a spear or an axe or something, because deadly weapons, swords, axe, spear, bow, that kind of stuff, that inflicts 2 harm. This is also for Igor, yes, absolutely. So basically, if we're using an improvised weapon or we're unarmed, that's 1 harm. If we're using a deadly weapon, that's 2 harm. And if we score a strong hit, we inflict an additional +1 harm. That means 3 harm multiplied by 3. So that's 9 progress in a single strong hit. So neither of us have access. I should say neither of us currently own a deadly weapon. If I'd been able to find a dang shaft for my spear... I would have been able to, but this means that I can take our foes much more seriously. It's not necessarily going to... I'm going to try and sort of probably scale up our foes now, just knowing that I'd been doing it totally wrong. But yeah, in a single strong hit with a deadly weapon, and that's without assets that give us additional harm or anything. For instance, for me, I've got Skirmisher. This will give me plus... This doesn't do additional harm, it doesn't look like. But I do think there's a Berserker or something that can do additional harm. But yeah, that is... I was doing it super wrong, so we should be dealing a lot more damage when we deal damage. The amount of damage that we are dealt, I believe, stays the same. But this does mean that stuff is a little different than I thought it was. It's going to be interesting. Okay, so there's that for you. We're going to be dealing a lot more damage in the future, which means I'm probably going to be leveling up our foes a bit. I think instead of... Basically, I took our foe, and because they weren't trying to kill us, I dropped them down by 1 level. So I'm assuming that upperclassmen were kind of a dangerous foe, and I've demoted them down to a troublesome foe because they weren't trying to kill us. Instead, I think I'm going to call them a formidable foe and drop them down to a dangerous foe, which means that we only do 2 progress per harm, but still, on a single strong hit with a deadly weapon, I guess we wouldn't use a deadly weapon if we were trying to kill them. That is a rule that I'm going to have. You cannot use a deadly weapon to deal non-deadly damage. So if we've got somebody that we're not trying to kill, we can't be shooting a bow at them unless we make some special non-lethal arrows. So something to keep in mind. I don't know. It might not be important later, but yeah, still in against a dangerous foe, which is 2 progress per harm. In a single hit with a deadly weapon, that is still going to be 6 progress in a single hit. So something to know, something to keep your eye out for if I end up trying to do it wrong again on accident. So there's that. Now, finally, folks, we have one last thing to talk about, and this is, of course, our current quests in this particular game. They are called vows, but let's take a look at them and see if we have made any progress on them. 1 star. Identify the items from Professor Ertrick, the Luca Brusca spy. 4 stars. Avenge your own death. 2 stars, make a good impression on Pinelli, and 3 stars, pursue academics. Igor, do you feel that you've made any progress on those? I'm a little skeptical. Maybe I can be convinced. Let me know. For myself, number 5, return to Blackwater, ready to settle down. This one, my life was not threatened or anything. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm not going to take progress on this one. This is like my my campaign long goal is Illyria ever going to feel like I've had enough adventure to decide to settle down? Sure, Sander. Oh, that's all right. I don't mind you knowing. If I do something wrong. Because if y'all want to play this game for yourselves, this is a very solo-friendly game. So it might not be quite the same fun that it is here. I can hope that it is. Frankly, that is a personal thing for me. I know there are tons of people right now online. There's a whole subreddit dedicated to it. Basically, solo RPGs can be a lot of fun for folks. I got into RPGs because I love collaborating with people, so it's not my thing necessarily, but this game can absolutely be played solo. There's a whole system of oracles, which are basically random tables to use to help you sort of figure out like what happens next. So instead of me telling you what happens next, instead you roll on these tables, and so you can tell your own story. And by golly, if any of y'all, what am I, in the 50s? If any of y'all, hi, I'm Encyclopedia Brown. If any of y'all do decide to play some Ironsworn or a different game and have your own adventures in the realms of Residus, please let me know, because I would be delighted to hear about it. If you want to know what part of the realms of Residus are most like the Ironsworn, the Ironlands that are intrinsic to the game Ironsworn, it would be the Oxbend. So if you were like having a pretty middle of the road, or I should say like pretty standard Ironlands adventure in Ironsworn, you would probably be hanging out up in the Oxbends, which is where Illyria is from. So just something to keep your eye on if you're curious about it. I don't think Illyria made any progress on heading back to Blackwater, ready to settle down. 3 stars, study under a lycan mentor. I don't think so. 4 stars, discover the truth of the underbrush. I think I might abandon that one. The underbrush got me down here, and maybe the underbrush will show up again, but it's just too hard to like go out and hunt around for the underbrush. I might go ahead and abandon that one. Let's see. Forsake a vow. When you renounce your quest, betray your promise, or the goal is lost to you, clear the vow and endure stress. I tell you what. I'm going to leave it one more session because we're heading back out into the wilderness. Maybe we will have an encounter. If not, then I might go ahead and leave this one in the wayside. I'm supposed to protect Professor Brana's secret, that Professor Brana is a House Dahlia spy. That one's a little tenuous. Matter of fact, I kind of did bad on that one today because I took remember Igor gave Illyria that potion of forgetting, and so Illyria isn't totally sure what transpired here, only that something bad happened in the Barbican, so there's that. And then finally, pursue expeditioneering. I may have to give up on this one simply because there's no way that Corzone is going to let me into the program now. Brisley will help me be a lycan, but Corzone's not going to work with me. Either that, or I'm just going to have to make it really difficult for myself to make it sensible for me to continue with that quest. We'll see. We shall see. Folks, I don't think either of us progressed on our quest line today, and I think that's quite all right. I'm not worried about that in the least. Thank you all so very much for joining me. This has been quite a bit of fun. I love y'all, and I hope that you will join me again next week for this, or tomorrow and on subsequent Thursdays for Flying Sidecar. We are currently reading through The Hunger Games. We had a bit of a wonky stream last week. Hopefully that will be improved this week. Folks, it's been an absolute blast. I'll see y'all later. If you want to find back episodes of this, you can find them over on Spotify or on YouTube. Just look for Side Cannons on Spotify. That is the name of the sort of show overall, this being campaign 2 of Side Cannons. I hope you will go check it out if you want to catch up on this campaign. And I love y'all. I'll see you later. Let's see if there's anybody to raid on over to. Who is online right now? I mean, basically nobody I know. So that's it for me. I'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.